Hello and welcome to lesson 5, the last lesson. So if you have completed all the lessons, you've completed all the tasks, congratulations guys, really well done. It's a huge amount of work. I know it was a huge amount of work creating it, so it's obviously a lot of work for you guys. I know a lot of you are mothers and fathers who have children and students who have coursework and just normal working people who have jobs, so I understand how much work it's been. But please do keep going with this lesson and get it all finished. So today we're going to look at grammar. And my philosophy towards vocabulary, towards grammar, towards everything to do with IELTS really can be summed up with this quote. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So hopefully the one thing that you should take away from this course is students overcomplicate everything, and it's not the student's fault. There's so much conflicting, confusing information out there that IELTS can become very complicated and very complex. And also what students do, and this is a natural human reaction when we fail something, we think that the answer is to come up with something more complex, when really what you need to do is you need to go back to basics and make it as simple as possible. And that's what I try and do with all of my teaching, and I include grammar in that. So we're going to look at a lot of stuff with grammar today. We're not going to look at individual grammar points because each individual grammar point, in order to really explain it, it would take about 1 hour each. So I have a completely separate grammar course that I give to my VIP students, and we cover 12 different grammar points, and each grammar point, like prepositions, punctuation, verb subject agreement, each of those lessons is nearly 1 hour. So we can't do all of that today, but we're going to do a hell of a lot. We're going to really help you out with your grammar. And at the end of the lesson, we're going to give you the opportunity to take things to the next level. We're not opening this up today. It's going to be tomorrow, but we're going to give you more information about that at the end of the video. Many of you have been asking, can I join your VIP course? I know it's closed at the moment, but we will open it tomorrow, and more information about that at the end of this video. But let's help you out as much as we can before that with some information about grammar. So grammar can be summed up as being the rules of the language. So it's really the law of the language, or the rules of the language. It's what you can and can't do. If we view vocabulary as the content, we can view grammar as the function. So think about vocabulary as the meat, the real content, where you get meaning from. Whereas grammar is the function. It's the rules. It's the thing that stitches everything together and keeps everything together and makes it easy to understand. Many people, including me, find grammar really boring. I remember when I was creating the IELTS grammar course, and it was not the funnest experience I've ever had in my life, because what I had to do was look at, I think I had 10 different grammar books, and what I did was I went through all of them and looked at all of the different rules and just boiled it down so that it was as simple and as easy to understand for my students as possible. But it is absolutely essential. There's no getting around it. So you might love grammar, but there might be other areas of IELTS where you're just like, this is boring, I don't really like this. Whatever that is, you just have to do it, guys. There's no way of getting around it. And think about what will happen when you get that high IELTS score. You'll be able to get the job of your dreams, move to the country of your dreams. So it's a little bit of hard work now, but it really pays off in the future. So grammar allows you to write. So why do we use good grammar? Why is good grammar important? So it allows you to write clearly, accurately, and without good grammar, the rest of your essay falls apart. So grammar is 25% of your total mark, but it actually means a lot more than that. Because if you have terrible grammar and you're making lots of mistakes, you're not going to have a coherent essay. So 25% of your mark is linked to coherence and cohesion. So a lot of people think that all I have to do is get really high marks for task achievement or coherence and cohesion, and maybe even in vocabulary, and it doesn't really matter if I have a low grammar score. It doesn't work like that, guys. Even if you are, you don't really like grammar and you think, I'll just focus on the other areas, poor grammar brings coherence and cohesion down. It can even bring your task achievement down, because sometimes people are making so many grammar mistakes that it's impossible for the examiner to understand if you have answered the question or not. And good grammar, so if you learn these rules and you get good at grammar, it improves the coherence and cohesion. It improves the task achievement because it makes everything clear and easy to understand. So it is a real essential thing that you need to master in order to move forward. For many of my students, the number one thing that was holding them back was grammar, and that's why I created the whole course for them, and that has made a huge difference to them, and it's taken a really, really good course, and it's meant that our scores now are just going through the roof. So back to basics, making things as simple as possible for you. So more than any other area, it is essential that you do the basics of grammar well. Not knowing basic grammar is like Messi or Ronaldo not knowing how to tie their shoelaces, or Gordon Ramsay, a very famous chef, not knowing how to use a knife. The reason why Messi and Ronaldo are the best footballers in the world is not because they can do the really, really complicated things better than everybody else. It's because they know how to do the basics really, really well, plus they can do all those complicated things. Imagine a chef who could do, cook 2 or 3 really amazing dishes, but couldn't do basic things like cook an egg. Think about all the English textbooks you have used. So when you're learning English, there's a very good reason why they start with basic grammar first, because it is absolutely essential. So it doesn't really matter in the exam if you have, 1 or 2 sentences with really complicated grammar in them and you write them successfully, but then the rest of your essay has very, very basic mistakes in it. That will show the examiner that you're not really confident with your grammar yet. You're not at a high level yet. You have to focus on getting the basic stuff correct before you can move on to the more complicated stuff. You have to learn how to walk before you can run. So how can we improve our grammar? How can we master our grammar? Many believe that you master grammar by learning complex sentences, complex structures, and a range of different tenses. We will look at why this is not completely true. Your ability is not judged on complexity, but how you're able to use grammar to clearly convey your message, because grammar is just a tool that allows you to clearly communicate with the reader, or with speaking to clearly communicate with the listener. We don't speak to someone or write to someone to show how fancy our grammar is. We write to someone or speak to someone in order to just communicate with them. So always remember that. So here are some grammar myths. You must use all complex sentences. You must use complex structures. And you must use a wide range of tenses. Now, each of these things, it's just not true. You do not need to have every single one of your sentences a complex sentence. And most people misunderstand what a complex sentence actually is. And we're going to look at that in more detail. You also do not need to use really, really complicated structures. You also don't need to use every single tense in the English language. A student last night in the feedback session asked me, do I have to use the past, present and future in one body paragraph? It's like, absolutely not. You do not need to do that. You use the tenses when it's appropriate to use them. The more important thing, the thing that you are missing and the thing that you need to figure out how to do is to write an error-free sentence. An error-free sentence is a sentence with no grammar errors in it at all. The more error-free sentences you have, the more likely you are to get one of the higher bands. You should be aiming for mostly error-free sentences. So what most of you are doing is you're trying to use complicated grammar and you're failing. You're making mistakes. If most of your sentences have mistakes in them, you cannot get over a band 6 for grammar. If you're not getting an over a band 6 for grammar, then you're going to struggle to get over a 6 overall. It's that simple. So you should be focusing more on improving your accuracy than improving your range. Range is important, but you're never going to get the score that you need until you start to write error-free sentences. Now let's look at complex sentences. Complex sentences are not actually complex. It simply means those sentences that have multiple clauses or ideas in them. It does not mean really long sentences. It does not mean, really complicated structures or sentences with complicated words in them. It just means more than one clause. My name is Chris. My name is Chris and I am from Ireland. My name is Chris and I am from Ireland, but I live in Vietnam. This is a simple sentence because it has one clause in it. Okay? So one clause, simple sentence. These two sentences are complex sentences because they have more than one clause in them. You might look at this sentence, my name is Chris and I'm from Ireland, but I live in Vietnam. You might look at that and say to yourself, that's pretty simple. I mean, words are really simple. There's no complicated structures in it. It's really short. How can that be a complex sentence? A complex sentence is a sentence with more than one clause in it. It does not mean a complicated sentence or a long sentence or a sentence with really complicated structures or words in it. Just means more than one clause. And most of your sentences, guys, you're going to be producing complex sentences anyway. And not all of your sentences even need to be complex. Like, for example, your topic sentences. Many of my topic sentences are just simple sentences. But the rest of them, the explanations, the examples, the summary and the conclusion, outlining my main ideas in the introduction, all of those are complex sentences. They have multiple clauses in them. So if an examiner is looking at your work and they see that most of your sentences are complex, they have more than one clause, you're absolutely fine. So thinking about it in that way makes it much simpler and easier to do. Some sentences will naturally be simple or compound sentences, such as topic sentences. Some sentences will be much longer, such as explanations and examples. By following my structure, you will naturally use a variety of these simple and complex sentences in your writing. So what I do with all of the different types of essay type, all the different types of questions, is I give my students step-by-step instructions, step-by-step structures, which guarantee that they will be writing complex sentences, so they don't have to worry about it. So again, it's breaking things down, making it simple as possible, so on exam day, you know exactly what you're doing. Complex structures. Okay, so lots of students and teachers talk about these, but very few can actually tell you what they are. So there's a difference between complex sentences and complex grammar structures. A lot of students conflate them. They talk about them as if they're the same thing. They're not really. What many students and what many teachers think is the more complicated your grammar and the more complex your structures, the higher score that you're going to get. I mean, that's a very logical thing to think. It's a very obvious thing to think, but it's going to get you in a huge amount of trouble. So these can get you in a huge amount of trouble in a similar way to using complicated vocabulary is going to get you in trouble. If your mistakes are so serious that you stop the reader from understanding meaning, you're probably going to get a band 5 for grammar. So if you're using structures that you're not comfortable with and that causes you to make huge mistakes, and those mistakes just stop the examiner understanding anything that you're writing in that sentence, then you're interfering with meaning coming through. And that category is reserved for band 5 and below students. So be very, very careful. Again, the analogy of going into the gym and trying to lift the heaviest weight, what's going to happen? You're going to drop it on your head and kill yourself. Trying to use the most complicated structures, you're going to mess up your whole essay. And for people who do that, it really does affect coherence and cohesion and task achievement. So many of you might be thinking right now, this is the opposite of what I've been taught. I've been taught that I have to use a wide variety of sentences and tenses and all of these different things. So let me clarify this for you and help you out with that. So I encourage my students to stop thinking about structure and think more about function. Think about the function of many of the sentences you will write. So for example, stating opinion or discussing others' opinions, summarizing, talking hypothetically, cause and effect, giving examples, and many others. You will use a variety of structures naturally. Follow the structure and you'll be fine. So again, what I do with my students is I give them particular structures for each type of essay. We go into detail on them. And by following that, you are naturally going to be using different functions and using a variety of different grammar structures. So again, it takes care of itself. You do not need to worry about it by following a system like that, and you can focus on accuracy and you can focus on those error-free sentences that are so crucial. So now that we know that you can use a system that will allow you to focus just on accuracy, how can you actually improve your grammar and how can you get those error-free sentences? First, focus on clarity, not complexity. Second, understand the function of each sentence, understand what it's doing, and turn your weak areas into strengths. And that is what you should be doing, that last point, that is what you should be doing for all areas of your IELTS preparation. There's no point in working on the areas that you're really confident about. There's no point in working on the areas that you have no problems with. Focus on your weak areas, the areas not that you think are weak, but get feedback from an expert. Get feedback from somebody who knows what they're doing. Like for most people, I can look at a Task 2 essay and tell them within 2 minutes the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 things that is causing them to get a 6.5 or a 6 and tell them exactly what to do in order to improve that. And it's the same with grammar. It's the same with vocabulary. So for grammar, I can look at somebody's writing and say, you have a problem with articles, punctuation, and prepositions. Focus on those 3 areas because you have 10 article mistakes, you have 11 punctuation mistakes, and you have 7 preposition mistakes. The rest of your essay is fine, but those 3 areas keep coming up again and again and again. So you need to find out what your individual weaknesses are and fix them. So as I've already mentioned, everyone has a few problem areas. I've no idea what yours are because I haven't seen your work, but if you show it to somebody who knows what they're doing, they'll be able to pick out your 2, 3, 4, 5 problem areas, the common grammar mistakes that you keep fixing again and again and again. But you're not going to be able to fix these yourself. You wouldn't try and fix your own teeth. You would go to a dentist. So if you had a problem with your tooth, you would take yourself to the dentist and they'd fix it for you. You wouldn't try and fix your car's engine yourself. You take it to a mechanic. But what many of you are doing is you're trying to fix your own grammar without even knowing what your common grammar areas are, what your common mistakes are. So fixing your weaknesses. Identify your 3 to 5 common errors. If you need help with that, I'll be able to help anybody who joins the VIP course at the end of this week. Review the rules and practice. So again, I can help you with that. I can help you review the rules because what I've done is reviewed all of the rules, looked at all of the books and distilled it down into a course for you. And then what you do, you produce that, you produce more sentences, you keep writing sentences, you keep getting feedback on it and you refine it over time. So it's learning the rules, trying, failing, fixing the mistakes, learning from your mistakes, and that's how you learn anything, guys. There's no shortcuts, there's no cheats or hacks. Can you imagine trying to shortcut your way to learning how to drive? You just would never be able to do it. Can you imagine shortcutting your way to getting a university degree? This IELTS is exactly the same. You need feedback on your writing. You need to find out what your mistakes are. You need to practice and you need to get feedback on that practice. And you can use that system not only for grammar, but for any area of IELTS, whether it's reading, listening, speaking, Task 1 academic, Task 1 general training, task achievement, coherence and cohesion, vocabulary. Identify your common areas of weakness, review the rules, get some practice, produce it, fail, fix your errors, then refine it based on the feedback. If you do that, you'll be really, really successful. If you don't do that, you're probably going to fail the test many, many, many times before the pain of that kicks in and you're like, okay, now it's time to actually take this seriously and get it done. So the final challenge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a full essay and a full question, and what I want you to do is take everything you've learned this week and focus on the things that you've been learning. Focus on the lessons that you've been learning. Take this question, analyze it, understand it, break it down, take your time, plan everything out, use the structure that I gave you, think about your ideas, populate them into the structure, write your introduction, write your main body paragraphs, develop your main ideas, write your conclusion, focus on clear communication, focus on accurate vocabulary and accurate grammar. And if you do that, I will be very, very impressed with the essay that you produce, and you will produce an essay that is in stark contrast to what you would have done at the start of the week. At the start of the week, you would have not really thought about the question, not really analysed it properly. You would have been using a structure or no structure at all. You wouldn't have been developing your main ideas. You'd be trying to use complicated, complex vocabulary and grammar and making a huge number of mistakes. Now you're doing pretty much the opposite of what you were doing, hopefully. And I really look forward to reading your essays. So, taking things to the next level, let's talk about IELTS VIP for the people who want to join. So we only accept about 100 people a month onto our VIP course. Most of these places are already gone, so it's the 23rd or 24th today. We're pretty near the month, we're nearly full. The reason why we only accept a few people is our business depends on providing excellence. We can't take more people. We intentionally keep the numbers very, very low so that the people that invest in us get the absolute best service possible. So the people that join the VIP course will get my personal email address. We give you full support until you pass the exam. There's no time limits. As soon as you join, you're going to get as much support as you need until you pass the exam. It's as simple as that. So we're only going to offer it to the 2,500 people in this group. To be fair to you guys, to the people that want to join, we're not going to advertise it to the world at large. If you look on my website, if you look at the homepage and you click on the VIP group, you'll see that there's a waiting list. You cannot join, but I will open it up tomorrow at 9 a.m. So what's the difference between this 5-day challenge and the VIP course? So the difference is like a tuk-tuk and a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce. The 5-day challenge is good. You've seen that it's good. It's probably the best dollar you've ever spent, but it is not the VIP course. One of the things that I do not like about these 5-day challenges is I cannot give people individual feedback on their work and give people individual tailored advice. So the VIP course, that's what it's all about. It's all about giving you the help you need until you get the score that you need. So if you thought that the 5-day challenge was good value at $1, imagine what the VIP course is like. So what now? If you're 100% sure about joining, email me, chris@ieltsadvantage.com, and I'll save you a spot. Feedback, I'm going to give feedback today at 6 p.m. on your essays. And then at 9 a.m., I'm going to open up the course to all of you guys, and whoever wants to join can join, and you can watch the video. You can, just to make sure you're 100% sure about joining. But once those 100 spots are gone, they're gone. That's it. So guys, from me, from all the members of the IELTS Advantage team, from my family, thank you very much for completing this course. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope to work with you even more in the future on the VIP course. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.